This is one of the harder things for me to come out here and speak about. It's easy to talk about jailhouse stories, what you ate for chow, how you worked out, what you did for a job, all the crazy stuff that you see and that you hear about in the movies and TV, etc. It's hard to open up and talk about why you caught your bit. A lot of people are going to judge you. They're going to look at you differently, and they may not hear what you have to say afterwards. I can definitively state right now, it's never a skin charge, a rapist, a child molester, a tree jumper. My charges had to do with violent crime. And that's one of the more real factors I had to consider when starting this channel. This could dampen a lot of employment opportunities for me in the future. But that's okay, because I decided to do this. I felt like it was time to talk about my story, about the stories of other guys that I've been locked up with, and it's pretty cathartic at the end of the day. Like, it's very therapeutic for me to be able to talk about some of this stuff, to move past it and get on with my life. It's been nearly 20 years since the day I got arrested. It's a long time ago, but it's still fresh in the mind. I got picked up in '03. That was the beginning of my journey through prison. When they scooped me up, I was at a friend's house. I kind of knew that they were coming. A lot of details I can't really speak on because I don't want anything to come back and bite me later on. Another reason I've been very hesitant to make and release this video. Before I got locked up, I considered myself a pretty average kid. Went to school, played sports, had a girlfriend, drank on the weekends, smoking some weed, just doing stuff that most kids did growing up in the 90s. It wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. So when it escalated is when I started to see more problems in my life. I'm not going to sit here and say that smoking weed and drinking is what put me in prison, because it wasn't. It led to me doing other drugs, which led to me committing the crimes that I did that put me in prison. And I'm not sitting here saying the drugs made me do it. I had a choice to make, and I made the wrong decision. And not just once, several times over, because it became a habit. It became repeated behavior where it ended up hurting me. Could have possibly got me killed, but I ended up getting locked up, thankfully, instead of dying on the streets. Fast forward a couple years, smoking tree, drinking, cigarettes. That stuff turned into just the regular, just to get right kind of concoction. That was how I started my day. That's how I went about my day. And that's usually how I ended my day. But it progressed past that to the point where I was sniffing coke, smoking some crack, ended up doing pills, eating acid, mushrooms. And at one point, this is my most embarrassing drug that I've done, I was smoking meth. And a lot of people look at me and say, You got your teeth. You smoked meth? Yeah, I did. I did, and I'm not really proud of it, but I learned a lot through my mistakes. Do I blame the drugs for putting me in prison? Absolutely not. I blame myself for the choices that I made that put me into prison. Drugs are a pretty easy crutch to blame it on, and it's definitely a cause. We all got choices to make at the end of the day. I made choices, decided to put those drugs into my body, and I decided to commit the crimes I committed. This is where I need to be careful, speaking about crimes. When I was charged, they threw everything in the kitchen sink at me. I mean, I'm talking about stuff that, when you look at the charge papers, the description said it was a black male with cornrows that came and robbed this place. And they're charging me with this stuff. So they were really coming after me. And I have to be careful about what I'm saying. I'm not 1,000% sure on the statute of limitations, and I believe all this is shelved and behind me, but I need to be very specific with my words. Another reason it's taken me a long time to get to this video. The night that I got picked up, 21 years young, went to the county jail. I didn't know what exactly they knew, because I was ripping and running pretty full steam. So when they came at me and asked me where I was on a specific night, honestly, I really didn't know. So I just told them, lawyer, I've got nothing to say. Just waiting to see the charge papers, because I knew at this point I'd get the charge papers. And mind you, I'm scared to death. I'm absolutely terrified. My weed's wearing off at this point. You know, my high is pretty much been it's pretty much been burnt out by the experience of getting scooped up at gunpoint, tossed with handcuffs, thrown in the back of the car, and wondering why I'm being hauled off to the county jail. So I get there, and they start asking me questions, and all I wanted to know was, what do they know? And they weren't saying a word. I invoked my rights to speak to a lawyer first and remain silent. Now, at this point, if you've not been locked up, what that means is they cannot question you anymore without an attorney present. So any kind of back and forth that you think you're going to do, shut your mouth. Don't talk. You get a lawyer in there because you can completely ruin your own case if you don't shut up. Only after I invoked my right for counsel was when they gave me the charge papers. And I looked at it, and my heart sank right there at that table. I'm looking at it, and it's saying armed robbery, handgun charges, first-degree assault, theft over, and the list goes on. And all I would see was this stack of charges and the time next to it for what each one would carry. And I'm seeing armed robbery, 20 years, and I got a stack of these coming at me. Like I said, my weed wore off real quick. Started getting sober on the spot, and boy was I shaking in my boots. Go down the list. Handgun charges, wear, carry, transport, handgun in the use of a violent crime, in the commission of a felony. I'm like, oh my goodness, I am freaking toast here. This is not something that you want to see, ever, slap down on you while you're at the interrogation table in handcuffs. As I'm reading the list of charges, this is when I learned about the conspiracy charge. That joker carries, I think, up to 25 years. It's 20 to 25 years. At least it was at the time. I can't remember. They hit me with so many charges, as I'm about to tell you what they really hit me with, that I don't know, but it was up there. And I was like, conspiracy? What is that? So I had to learn a lot as I went through it. And this is not like a crash course that you want to take a part of. It's something you really want to avoid. At this point, since I wouldn't talk to them, they ended up processing me, did my fingerprints, did all my, hold the board up thing, and they put me on the block. They put me back there, sprayed me down a little quick shower. You got to shower in front of the guard real quick, like, they butterball you, they make you do the squat cough, all that fun stuff that's completely humiliating. Here I was a couple hours earlier just chilling, watching, I think it was X-Men or something on FX. And next thing you know, there they are, beating on the door, coming for your boy. So it's a drastic change. I'm sitting here squatting, coughing. I said, well, this is real. This is really happening. So they end up hauling me off to a holding cell. I'm waiting there, just trying to figure out what's going on. And they throw me in the big tank. The big tank's no fun. I'd rather be in like a two-person holding cell. The big tank, I mean, you got, it's just wild in there, man. I think there's like 16 beds or something stupid until they process you onto the block. And just sitting there, it's the worst. Everybody's trying to talk about what they're doing, talk about where they've been. Oh, hey, what's up, man? How you been? It's meetup for some guys. For me, it was an absolute nightmare. Not because anything crazy happened to me, but just because I knew I was going to be there for a hot minute. And I did not want to be around these cats. Stinking, breath rank, gross, stupid. They don't have anything good to talk about. And it was just a boring, miserable place to be. One of the worst parts of being locked up is you're around a bunch of idiots. People that just want to talk about the dumbest, stupidest things. And don't get me wrong, there's some great guys, but I really don't want to hear about your STDs. I really don't want to hear about that stuff. Keep it to yourself, man. That's not something everybody wants to talk about, much less hear. Couldn't wait to get on the block, get in a cell, get a book, find some people to play cards with, anything, work out to get away from that big holding cell. Initially, it was just the one set of charges from the one incident. And I thought, oh man, thank God. I know I've done some more things than this, so this is good. This is all they know. And this is the part where I completely royally screwed myself. A few months prior to this, I had wrecked my car. I slammed into a deer and totaled it, and I did not have wheels. Therefore, to do some of the stuff that I was doing required me to have wheels. And looking back now, one of the biggest mistakes of my life was having a co-defendant. My co-defendant started telling him everything. He started talking to him, trying to cut himself a deal, which eventually he did. He got himself a sweet deal compared to mine, was out pretty quick. But to do so, he ended up telling them everything in the world, stuff that they never would have caught us for, things that no one would have ever found out about. My lawyer even confided and told me, if your co-defendant would have just kept his mouth shut, y'all would have both walked. Was I mad about it? Yeah, I was real salty for a long time. Until I found out a little bit later on, and this is why I'm not holding grudges. I don't do that. I don't have any bitterness or anger towards anybody. The police, in their extreme corruption at the time, came and they wrote out a completely false statement, signed my name to it, and pushed it in front of this kid. And they told him, your boy is ratting on you. Now, if you can tell us more, we'll let you go. With a little slap on the wrist. That was completely illegal. If you guys don't know, that is a completely illegal move. You can't do that. I don't know if that's entrapment or what it is, but I know it's extraordinarily illegal. So he got tricked. I really, as mad as I was, I can't hold a grudge about it. He got tricked by the police. Still could have kept his mouth shut and we would have all been home. No problems. But he did not. Therefore, he started telling him everything. And it started to come out about a week at a time. And at this point, we were both in the same jail. And I wasn't getting bonded out. I already knew it. Nobody was going to bail me out for this. And to be quite honest, I didn't ask. I said, I'm just going to go ahead and get my time served in the county jail, start my bit now, because I know I'm going to do some time. And I don't want to have to get out and then come back in after trial. Let's just do it now, be done with it, get this party started early. I don't want to wait. And then if they do let me go at court at the end of trial or whatever, so be it. But I'll have this time served because I knew I was doing some time. There's no doubt in my mind. Since we were in the same jail, I ended up getting transferred about 2 weeks in. They moved me to another county over, which looking back was quite a blessing because it was a much better county jail. The food was better, had a lot more movement. It was cleaner. I actually got lucky in that aspect. Before they transferred me, the local detectives called me up and they asked me some questions. They say, hey, we want to go ahead and we want to ask you something. Even though I'd already invoked the lawyer thing before, I said, okay, let me hear what they got to say. Because I knew what it was. I said, hey, we want you to testify against such and such. In return, we'll take care of you. We'll give you the smallest amount of time possible. You know, you'll probably do like 18 months or 2 years. And then you'll be home. It'll all be minimum security. Trying to sell me this nice, sweet deal. I'm just looking at them, you know. They said, what do you think? How do you feel about that? I said, okay, this is what I want you to do for me. Put me back on the block and don't ever come at me without a lawyer again. Hand on the Bible. That's what I did. In the moment, I told them to put me back on the block and don't come at me without a lawyer again. They did not like my response. In that moment, I knew that they were gunning for me now because I basically told them, GFY, just get out of here. So they did. They put me back on the block, transferred me to another jail, and here's where the psychological intimidation started from their angle. They started coming in about once a week with new charge papers. for all kinds of stuff. Remember when I said there was one, they said it was a black male with cornrows. They still charged me with it. It's part of the agenda to scare you. They stack the deck. They completely load up and overload the charges to frighten you so that you will play ball. But in my case, they knew that I wasn't going to, so I think that they were just trying to terrorize me. I really do. I 100% believe that. I think it was just, how much can we scare this guy, try to break him, and then if he does come back and ask for a deal, we'll tell him, go back to the block. I really felt like it was one of those kind of mind games. So I had to take it in stride. Every single time. This was a complete circus situation. Every time I got a new charge, they would have to get a deputy to ride me over, process me in again through the county jail, even though I'm already in the county jail. They'd take me through the processing department, which was a separate building. They run me through, and then I'd have to go up for a bail review or a bond review. And it was pretty wild because my bond just kept stacking up. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I knew I wasn't going to post bond. So at this point, I was like, man, I can be mad about it, or I can kind of just let it go and not let it bother me, because I've resigned myself that I'm going to be here for a while, probably some years. Weeks and weeks, they go by, time starts passing along. I'm in there a couple months now, and they've done the same song and dance several times. Several times. I've been charged, I don't even know. And I look back how many times they shuttle me back and forth to do this. But when my bond got to $750,000, the judge finally revoked it. And I was just like, thank you, Your Honor. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. I didn't say that. That was my thought. I didn't say, thank you, Your Honor. This is... Didn't happen that way. This is just internal dialogue that I'm having with myself. And he was like, you got all these armed robbery charges and handgun charges, first-degree assaults, all this stuff. I'm just going to revoke your bail. And I was like, okay, cool. But I got it up to, $750,000, which is, it's, like I said, it's psychological terrorism they're trying to put on me. I truly believe this. So after my bail gets revoked, I already know I'm going to be in there for a while. I'm waiting to see how this works out because they really don't have much evidence. It's kind of just hearsay at this point. But it's pretty freaking terrifying because when I look back at the amount of charges that they actually put on me, people don't believe me when I tell them. They do not believe me. They think I'm making this stuff up. So I went to go case search a lot of my stuff. And there's an interesting point about that I'm going to get to in just a second. But I ended up having somewhere, it was, when I counted it up, I was facing 840 years in prison, and I had 139 felony charges. Like I said, they stacked this stuff, they overload it to try to break you or to make you play ball. I knew to go to court and fight this in trial was pretty much going to bankrupt my family. It was going to be extraordinarily expensive. It wasn't fair to them. So after 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it was, I can't remember exactly the time frame, I told my lawyer, I said, listen, man, if you can get all these charges consolidated, put them all together, and get me a light plea deal, I will take it. I will take it. A lot of people on here probably get mad saying, oh, you should have fought it. You should have fought it. I'm not bankrupting my family for the things that I did. You got to be a man sometimes. I'm not going to do that to them. It's just not fair. And to be honest, I did enough dirt on the streets that I had this coming. Some time has passed by now. My lawyer reached back to me and said, okay, this is the best I could do. They're giving you an open-ended plea deal. And there's silence on the phone. I'm like, what does that mean? He says, that means that they'll put everything together, drop a lot of the charges, but they want you to plead to, these particular ones right here, and it'll be a plea agreement between 12 to 27 years. Now my mind's going crazy. I'm like, this is nuts. 12 to 27. I'm like, 12, I could do 12. 12, that's not bad. If they just give me 12, or even, 14, 15, 16, I probably would have jumped on it. But the 12 to 27? it just seems so uncertain, and that's where it got really terrifying for me. So I asked my lawyer, so what do you think I should do? You know, the lawyers, they play golf with the judges, with the DAs. These guys all talk to each other. They know what's going on behind the scenes much better than we ever will. Now, they'll do whatever you ask them to do, but you'd be a fool not to take their advice. These guys do this every day. He told me, if they catch you on one of these charges, you will get 80 years. I don't know about you, but 80 is worse than 12 to 27. And there was a good chance of all the charges, the 139 felony charges, they would have got me on one, and that would have opened the door up to blast me, to bury me under the jail. I did not want 80 years. Being 21 years old, I said, you know what? Let me call my mom. Let me talk to her. I need to see what she thinks. And to be honest, I'm going to pray about this one tonight because I do not know what I'm supposed to do right now. So I call my mom up. I talk to her on the phone. I say, hey, this is what the lawyer says. If I get caught for any one of these charges, they're going to give me 80 years. They're going to make an example of me because I went hard. I told the cops where they could stick it, and they didn't like that. So they were using everything in their power to come after me. And 80 years is it's a pretty terrifying prospect. So we talked about it. We weighed everything out, and I said, you know, I'm facing 840 years, Mom. And she started to cry on the other end of the phone. And in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, I can either let this wreck me, or I can try to make her laugh. And I chose the latter of the two. I told her, I said, Mom, it's okay. It's all right. Nobody does that much time. With parole, I'll be out in 400. So she started laughing. I started laughing. She stopped crying. You know, had to bring a little levity to the situation. I said, nobody's really going to do that much time. It's not going to happen. So weighed my options out, and she was like, if you want to fight it, we'll fight it. But I knew how much it was going to cost, and it would have just been completely unfair. And we didn't have that kind of money to do it. Even if I did, I mean, it was just, I messed up. So it's not their burden to carry. Even though they were great parents to me, they're supportive, you know, they tried to help me out, and you know, they were there for me throughout my time. Long story short, I prayed on it. I went to bed. Next day, I told the lawyer, I said, all right, ma'am, tell him we'll take the deal. Tell him we'll take it. I said, please try to get me on the lower end of that spectrum. Do whatever you can. I know it's not completely in your hands, but I really don't want that 27, man. That's real close to 30 years, and I'm kind of terrified of doing that. The lawyer put in the plea, pled guilty for me, ended up going to court. I had to stand in there and say that I was pleading guilty, and I know that I didn't have a right to appeal because of it, and you lose a lot of your legal rights when you plead guilty. But I didn't want 80 years, and there's a real good chance they would have given it to me. So I pled guilty, took the rap, and then they put up a pre-sentencing investigation, which is where they pretty much, you know, when you're looking at a lot of time, they'll take factors into consideration. After the PSI is done, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks later, I go in for sentencing. And this is walking the plank in life more than anything else that you'll ever do. When you have to walk into that circuit court, look the judge in the eye, and take your medicine. So I'm having my sentence read off to me. At this point, the judge says 8 years for the first count of armed robbery. I start doing the math in my mind. I'm like, okay, 8 years. I can do 8 years. This is manageable. The second count of armed robbery, 8 years to be run consecutive. So, oh no, that's 16. I'm starting to tack up here. This is not good. Consecutive and concurrent. Concurrent means that it will run with the time. So if I had 2 8s, you know, running concurrent, it would have just been 8 years. 2 8s consecutive is 8 plus 8, 16. And the third charge, 20 years, all suspended, but 8 to be run concurrent. I said, oh, thank you for that. That was a relief. So that means I'm still looking at 16 at this point, but I got 12 hanging over my head with the suspended. And on the last charge that they end up hitting me with, 5 years for the use of a handgun and a felony to be run consecutive. And I'm just like, oh no. Did he just give me 21 years? Did I just catch 21 years today? Surprise! He did. He gave me 21. At this point, most people are crying, shaking, dropping to their knees, freaking out, maybe throwing a chair at the judge, cussing at him, something along those lines. And he was giving me a pretty stern look. He didn't like me, and that's okay. I wouldn't have liked me either, because I was out there doing some pretty rotten stuff to people. And he looked at me with a very stern countenance, and he said, do you have anything to say for yourself? And I just looked at him, and I told him, I said, thank you, Your Honor. And I went and I sat down, and that was it. And the courtroom was completely silent. That pin drop thing that they say you could have heard a pin drop, yeah, you could have heard a pin drop. So I took my lumps like a man. You want to do the crime? You got to do the time. And how you act about it and how you carry yourself is going to be one of the main indicators of how you're going to do throughout the rest of your bit. I was the second to last person to be tried and charged that day. And the last guy that went up after me, this is just how it worked out. I hate being the end of the day. I really hated being there at the end of the day because, there could have been a lot of people going in there and ticked that judge off and had him in some kind of way where he's real mad. And then you come up and then you're getting the brunt of it at the end of the day. So I was the second to last guy. I got my 21 years. I'm sitting off to the side waiting for the clerk to bring me all my paperwork. They're explaining it to me. I'm in a state of mild shock. I feel like I'm in my body, but I'm kind of out of it as well. Like I remember everything. But I just remember sitting there and being like, I just got 21 years. And I just kept playing it over in my mind. I just got 21 years. He just gave me 21 years. Could have been 29, but I got 21 years. So the very last guy of the day, he goes up, and I think he had something like a DWI or something. It might have been a repeat offense, and the judge ended up giving him something like 30 or 60 days, and the comment was made that he goes, if I just gave that man that time, you'll be all right with your 60 days. And the guy was like, yes sir, Your Honor, thank you. So it became kind of a joke for them, haha. And I don't know who that guy was. I hope he learned his lesson after that, see the guy right before him get completely smoked. Now that I've been sentenced, I know my real trip is about to begin. This county jail stuff, that's just the precursor. And I was actually kind of glad that I didn't try to bond out because now I had that time in under my belt, which is going to help. Time served, it counts towards your time. So by the time they came and scooped me up to take me off to DOC from the county jail, the gap of time from the date of arrest to that point was around 11 months. I think it was like 10 and a half months, which is average for a bigger case. You're going to sit there. There's going to be a lot of due diligence done on the prosecution's end, on your attorney's end. They have to file motions for discovery, see what evidence they have. There's all this back and forth. And the fact that I had a co-defendant, they had to take this all into consideration. So it was a lengthy process. And, I got 21 years, but I've got about a year in at this state in the game. Before they come to scoop me up and haul me off to DOC, before I get processed, sent into the system to really start doing my time, you go back to the county jail and you wait. When I got back, a lot of the guys that, I was friends with in there, we played cards together, worked out, watched the General Hospital together. Don't judge me. We all got together, and they were like, man, how did it go? How did it go? I had probably like 7 or 8 guys come up there like, man, what happened? What'd you get? What happened, buddy? How'd it work out? And I told him, I said, man, they just gave me 21 years. And everybody was like, nah, quit playing, man. What'd they really give you? What'd you get, 10, 12? And I was like, 21, dude. I was like, this ain't no joke. They just gave me 21. And you could tell everybody was looking at me like my dog just died. I mean, they're all like, ooh, oh man. And they didn't know what to say. I mean, that's one of the bigger bits that was caught in the county jail, at least when I was there. There's a couple guys, that got some time, but, we didn't really associate with all those cats. We weren't friends with all of them. So this was like close to home in our group, you know what I mean? I was the guy looking at the most time, and my friends, they felt for me. They really did. And like they're coming up, giving me little daps and all that old stuff, and man, you're gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. You're not gonna do all that time. They're gonna shave some off when you go in the door. And it's true, it's all true, but it doesn't make you feel any better. The classification officer was a really good guy in the county jail. And he ended up asking me, he was like, are you going to be all right? Do I need to put you on watch? Or I need to put you in another cell? I said, no. So I'm just ready for DOC to come get me. I'm ready to go, start doing my time. I've done a whole nother video on, going through the processing stage of DOC and what that means. So I'm not going to get into all that right now. But it was definitely a welcome relief to get to prison because it's much better than the county jail. And your time goes faster. You have a lot more to do. It's just better in all aspects. I don't know anyone who would rather do county jail. Prison is where you want to go to. You get more time shaved off your sentence. There's more movement. There's just so much more to do. A lot of people have said to me, they go, man, I couldn't do 21 years. I couldn't do 21 years. I said, what's the alternative? I probably should have died on the streets doing some of the stuff that I was doing, but I didn't. So I'm thankful for that. Much more than people understand. Like, yeah, but that's 21 years. I'm like, but I'm alive. I lived. I didn't die of a drug overdose. I didn't get shot. I didn't have something crazy and terrible, tragic happen to me, which a lot of people have had. There's a lot of people who've lost loved ones and family and friends from their decisions that they made. As upset as I was to have to catch that 21-year bit, I was grateful to be alive. When I got where I was going, I produced my paperwork to some of the guys on the tier to show them, look, I'm not a sex charge. Don't come at me that way. I'm here for this and that. And one of the good things was people said I had a cool charge for being locked up. Armed robbery, handgun, all this kind of stuff, man. The conspiracy charges they gave you, the assault charges, everything that they try to hit you with, man. It was stacked up and loaded up. It was so crazy. When I went up for parole finally, there's something that they do called a parole review, which allows you to go up and fine-tooth comb through all of your paperwork to make sure that it's all there and accurate before it's sent off to the parole board. When you get to go up and check your paperwork, it's not just you, I find out as I'm going up. There's about 10 or 12 of us, and we go up to this spot. It's in the library at one of the jails, and there's a stack of paperwork on the center table in there. It was everybody's jackets. Now most people have files, these files, paperwork around this big, and you just had to go up and find yours. And I hung back to the back of the crowd, let everybody get their paperwork, and as soon as they're all done getting their stuff, I go over, and now there's only a couple files left on the table. And I hear some of the older guys going, whose is that? That's a book, man. And that was my book. I looked over, everybody's got these, file stacks like this, and then you see mine, it was like this big. It was crazy. So from that point on, when people saw my jacket, they were like, you did all that? And I said, man, they charged me with all that. They didn't get me for all that, and they really tried to pin it all to me, but yeah, that's me. So I actually got a little bit of jail respect for that. People are like, man, what are you, some kind of mastermind? What is this? What did you do? How many people did you kill? I said, man, I ain't got no bodies, bro. I'm all right. I didn't do nothing like that. So after parole review, people looked at me a little bit different in the yard, which was fine by me. I mean, I guess they realized that I put some dirt in, and I went out there talking about it. I'd done my work. I didn't have to brag about it. I didn't go around boasting. You don't want to do that anyway. A lot of times people who do that are the loud ones. And everyone knows what they say. The loudest one in the room is usually the weakest one in the room. Now, that doesn't mean that the quietest one in the room is the strongest one in the room by any means. But usually, the people who like to bark and show off and shout and holler all their stuff, they're not really made like that. A lot of times it's just that defense mechanism. If I'm loud, people will think that I'm XYZ. So being quiet, keeping to my own, not bothering anybody, and carrying myself the right way with respect towards the other guys, and having that jacket be seen on parole review, it did. It's like my jail stock went up in points a little bit, which was okay. You know, people might have looked at me a little bit differently before, just thinking, oh, look at this little soft little white boy, he ain't over there messing with nobody. Then they said, no, hold on. That's that guy I was telling you about with the stack. I'm like, oh, that dude? Oh, okay. All right, word. And people would usually back off, leave you be. You know, I mean, you're always going to have your struggles, your issues. People are going to say stuff. They're going to try you. They're going to do things. It's how you respond in the moment. In preparation for this video, which is something I've been thinking about doing for a very long time, I started this channel in late August. I wanted to start it back in the springtime, but I just had too many concerns. I was worried about putting myself out there. I was a little bit worried about, you know, this kind of screwing up any kind of future job options or employment opportunities for me. So I backed off. But I did my research and case searched myself. I went back and checked. And just over the months, I got the numbers right here, it's changed. I think they're revamping the system throughout, you know, case search and Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. I think a lot of things have passed the statute of limitations for how long they keep some of these records available. But I had 139 felony charges when I first started out. And later on, checking this stuff, the numbers have gone down. It's gone down to, I had 68 back in the spring, and then when I checked it again here, like maybe a few weeks ago, it was down to 35. And I went through this stuff like very, very precisely to make sure, and I know my own cases. So a lot of the stuff's being wiped out from case search, which is kind of cool. You know, not to count the misdemeanors. There was 104 back in the spring, and then 60 not too long ago. So a lot of the charges, they're going away. They're disappearing from online, which is kind of nice. You know, I guess that's something. But it tripped me out. I was like, I knew I had 139, but it's continually dropping off. Maybe that'll help in the long run. Who knows? I don't see myself working in an office, hanging around a water cooler anyway. So I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy. I've done construction for years. I worked in the service industry. I was a bartender down at the resorts for a while. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. Nobody knew about my past, and I could just go in there and just have a good time. You know, cut it, have some jokes, have some laughs. I enjoyed it. It was great work, great money, but the lifestyle was a little too crazy, and I knew I could have gotten in trouble, so didn't do it for too long. I worked industrial for a while after that, which was like the work, but you know, sometimes that shift work schedules, it's a pretty hard one to get around running a full 7-day swing, and you just got to keep moving on. But these were my concerns with posting this stuff, because hey man, who's going to hire a guy like me? Not to go into that too much or into some great detail, but I've got other plans figured out. I've been working from home. I've been doing other things to make money legally these days, not doing anything stupid and get myself locked up. But yeah, that's catching that 139 felony charges. It was an eye-opener. While speaking with my mom on the telephone one day, I called her up when I was up in the mountains, and we were just, you know, catching up, joking, laughing on the phone. I always tried to make mom laugh and smile. You know, I don't want her to worry about me. I don't tell her about a lot of the crazy stuff that went on in there. As a matter of fact, when she watches some of these videos, she's like, "That happened." I'm like, "Yeah, I wasn't gonna tell you about it. You don't need to worry about me. You just I want you to think everything's all right, even if it's not." So we're talking on the phone one night, and she goes, "You've always got something to say. You should do a radio show or something when you get out." And that's when it hit me. And I told her in response, I said, "Yeah, because that's just what everyone wants to listen to. The Superfelon talk show." And she goes, "There you go, right there. Who's Superfelon?" I said, "That's me. Who else got 139 felony charges?" After I said it, I remembered that. I said, "Superfelon, huh? That's kind of a cool tag." So I took that one, and a couple people, used to joke with me about it. "What's up, Superfelon? What's going on, felon?" And that's my PlayStation tag, and I got a Twitter handle pretty much just reserved as Superfelon because I just rather have me own that title than somebody else. I had it on Instagram, but my accounts got shut down a while ago for nothing. They wanted photo IDs to keep my Instagram and Facebook alive, and I was just like, "I'm good. I don't need it. You're not getting my photo identification, period, for this. I'm just not doing it." I wasn't going to do it. Didn't care that much about them. So Instagram was that. My Twitter is that. My PlayStation tag is that. And I tried, initially, I was going to call this Superfelon something or other on the channel, but it just didn't feel right. So I ended up going with Lockup, Legends, and Lessons because the alliteration, which means the LLL, that's all that is. It's an English term for, just using the same beginning letters of words in combination. And I just used that. I liked it a little bit better. It sounded a little bit smoother. And to be honest, I'm not trying to promote being a felon. I don't think it's something I want to glorify. But I'll talk about it all day long in the lessons aspect. Because I'm hoping that some people won't do some of the stupid stuff that I did if they hear how much pain you get to go through in prison. You miss your family. You miss life. I was there from 21 to 29. I spent my 20s in prison, man. I missed a lot of good years, but I'm home now, and I'm happy, and I'm glad that I did my time because the alternative for me was to end up in the street shot, dead, or overdosed. So, for those of you who have asked and inquired about what I did to catch my time, there it is. Just want to say thanks to everybody for sticking around at the end of the video. If you made it this long, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all of my subscribers. We just cracked over 100 today, and I know that's not a lot compared to a lot of people, but I'm extraordinarily grateful. I appreciate everyone that watches, likes, comments. I really do. As always, the wise man doesn't get himself into what the smart man has to get himself out of.